We're live-ish,
All right.
mostly.
All right, everybody. Here we are with DGG presents Random Encounters. So,
We
as a note, Don is still recovering from his first. Yay, you're first! Bout of COVID in this world. So the voice is a little and the energy is a
Yep.
little down. So excuse Don for not talking as
Yep.
much, or if you have to strain to hear him.
Instead of an old-fashioned, I got Theraflu rocking, so yeah.
Joining us as always with our random encounters is Brian at
I am Brian at Bjark the Bard. I write everything to help DMs and GMs improve their skills. And I also do a little bit on the content creation side of a couple little things out there.
Mm-hmm.
there's a new thing that's going to be coming out pretty soon,
There,
right?
there is, yeah. It's our first group Kickstarter.
Mm.
We have the pre-launch page up now.
Throw that link. Throw that link.
Yeah, let me grab that.
As I stuff my
Yeah,
face.
we just.
I can see the cats and the blur in the background fighting.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course. Right now, they've decided like, oh, someone's talking, so we're going to try to destroy everything.
My time is now.
So
There we go.
give us the elevator pitch on the runic stuff here.
Yeah, sure. So, the way, the whole concept behind this is a not a replacement for the casting system, but this is an alternate way to cast, involving using language itself to call upon the power of the weave through either writing glyphs down in some way, some speak them, some carve them into themselves, and it allows you to pull on these powers. Um, and it creates a higher risk, higher reward system for magic.
Oh,
And
nice.
the original Runic Compendium already is out. It was made by Jackson, who is heading up this project.
I still haven't had the chance to fully play his Spiritfarer class that I actually bought from him because that game.
That was really cool.
Yeah, the game I was going to do it in took a little bit of a hiatus, and I haven't gotten back to it yet, but I want to. My Ancestral Guardian Barbarian going Spiritfarer just feels so right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Runesmith was his first kind of foray into it, where it was its own class entirely. And then he decided he wanted to expand it. So what this is going to do is this is going to be a whole bunch more runes in a variety of languages, and then there are going to be subclasses for just about every class. I think minus Artificer will have a chance to get a little bit of that runic goodness.
Nice.
Sweet, sweet runic goodness.
But in our traditional fashion, it's got everything. It's got NPCs, it's got monsters, it's got items. It even has a couple spells. So it's just everything you could want to bring this exciting, flashy, and a little dangerous way to call on magic to your table.
And I'm sure, knowing who we're talking to, there's some little sprinkling of horror something in there somewhere.
Oh, just I'm sure there's just a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I really like the idea of magic being that thing that's kind of gambling dangerously. I really enjoy that mechanic.
Yeah, that was Jackson's kind of main drive behind it. Is he had said he wanted magic to have that risk reward that you don't generally see in vanilla 5e, which I mean, I understand it makes it easier to kind of jump into for newer players. However, this with everything that this brings to the table, it gets way more exciting.
Yeah.
I think the Beyond the Golden Vault Dawn, if you look at the Warlock subclass that's in there with the luck and dealing with the all or nothing, I think you would really like that too. Because there's real high risk, high reward in that one, and I think it would be fun to just do an oops all Warlocks with everybody playing that class. Just the swings that could happen. Oh my lord!
Especially in like just a one-shot funhouse. Like literally, all of these warlocks made a deal with like some really, really primordial being that's in control of chaos, and just like it's like, let's play a game.
Oh boy! All right, we're gonna move on to a few talking points while we have Don's voice lasting. So
thanks.
First thing we'll dive into, we're a little bit behind the times on this because the schedule changed on us. It was doing pretty good, as you know, it would come out the day we did random encounters every time.
Yep.
So the schedule has changed, but there's still new 1D&D playtest stuff. The survey is still open as of the time that we're recording this. I don't remember for how long it's open still, but it is the Paladin and the Druid. So I'm just gonna dive in here.
Funny.
I took some notes.
They didn't look Druish.
There it is.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
So they did some massive changes to the Druid in this playtest. And I want to preface this by saying this is a playtest document. This is not the final rule set. I'm aware of that. I know a lot of people out there are aware of that, but there are a lot of people out there that talk like they are not aware of that. I just see a whole lot. It's like, I'm never switching to this. This is awful. It's like, this is the spaghetti method. They've got all this time. They're using the spaghetti method to try anything they've ever thought of. This is not the final result.
That and wild shape is super clunky. So yes. It definitely needs retooling. In my opinion. Because having a character, or having a player manage their own monster manual is a pain.
Mm-hmm. That was probably the biggest problem with the Circle of the Moon specifically, and just druids in general. So they tried to simplify it. I can see where they're going.
Everybody off.
Yeah, I can see where I think all of us can see where it's going, and their hearts are in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Their minds and their execution just isn't.
Yeah, it's going to be all about scaling. They just have to figure out a way to make it scale properly, and then it'll be all good.
Probably honestly, one of the biggest things, and the fact I say the biggest thing is ironic in the situation, but probably one of the biggest problems I had with what they did was you can't be a tiny creature until you're 11th level.
Yep, they did that to keep people from from like superpower gaming issues.
Yeah.
Superpower gaming how?
Because a tiny creature is the perfect spy.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the problem would be that if you have a druid in your party that can become that tiny shape, you go to do recon, you got a rogue in the party, and the druid's like, well, I can be on the fly. And the rogue's like, well, yeah, you're right. I guess I should not be involved. You're going to be able to do this better than I am. Which is fine to come up from time to time. But then the problem comes in with, you get into combat, and then the druid's like, oh, well, I can be a bear. I can frontline just as well or a little bit better than you, fighter. And that's at the core of what they were trying. Yeah, it's what they were trying to do, and I can appreciate that they were trying to do that, where they wanted druids to still be able to do a lot, still be able to have that awesome wild shape, but they wanted to kind of make them a little less all over the place, but the execution was really bad.
Yeah.
On this. It was boring.
Yeah, there's that too, and just like little mechanical things. Like, okay, I kind of see what you guys are seeing with the tiny being a shape,
Mhm.
but at the same time, your when they wild shape, the physical stats became the physical stats of the creature, which in most cases for something like that is a detriment to the player in that aspect as far as what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this iteration, the physical stats match the wisdom stat of the druid,
Yes.
I think. And
Yeah.
I can see why they're trying to do that, though, because it makes the wisdom stat stand out more for the druid,
Mm-hmm.
which should be one of its central focus. But yeah, they're just gonna have to come up with a better formula. I mean,
yeah, like they're trying to simplify it. I get that. It's just it doesn't stick well for me. I like the fact that I think it helps the fact that there's no longer a second health point pool.
one thing that I wish they'd lean into is doing something like alter self. Like, as you're starting off as a druid, you're only able to slowly take on aspects of animals, and it isn't until you get
Cool.
up higher that you're actually able to transform fully into them. Because then it would be like you basically get one aspect of alter self as your wild shape ability, and then so on and so forth. And as that grades up, you get, more and more advanced versions of those.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of go through my list here so I don't lose it because I kind of had a day here. So, number of uses of channel divinity / channel nature. They limit it to your. They give you a certain number based on your level in that class, which is a change other than from proficiency bonus, which I agree with.
Yeah,
Because
I can see that.
very valid point. You take one level on cleric and have all these levels in something else. Your cleric's gonna have all these channel divinities based on your proficiency bonuses level 1.
Yep.
Okay.
It really wasn't fair on the scaling there.
Yeah. So changing that to just like a scale for levels in a certain class, which I'm pretty sure the scale is the same based on cleric, druid, paladin, whatever. I don't think there's differentiation on how many you get, but you just have to have levels in that class to get it. I agree. Good way to balance it out, keep that kind of power gaming from happening, and it just makes sense too. Like, why should you have all this extra ability if you have only barely dipped into this class? Logic works. The fact that your constitution doesn't change with your animal, like shape, indifferent, don't really matter, doesn't sway me at all. Only having the one hit point pool, as I mentioned, I like that. That takes away a little bit of the OP-ness of the
it.
druid, like you mentioned, wild shaping into a bear, and then having that health pool, and then that health pool goes away, and they still have all their health.
It also removes the arguments on what happens when death spells are involved, etc.
I was about to say power word kill, finger of death.
Yep. Power word kill. It doesn't matter how many hit point pools you have. You're just dead.
I mean, I think if they were to bring... I think if they were going to bring back the temp HP in some way, I would want it in a single subclass.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, I think Moon would almost make sense with what they're trying to have Moon, or they could make a completely new subclass that is about, like, being a very strong offensive creature in your wild shape. And there you could say, like, well, when you wild shape, you get this amount of temporary hit points.
Yeah, like
or something like
Circle
that.
of the Monster or Predator.
Well, they could even give you, because what they've done with the cleric is they have the holy order choices with the cleric. Is what they have.
Yeah, you
could do something like that with the druid, where Circle of the Moon, you can choose to be a tanky with getting more health or something, or offensive, or
they could even have different orders of the Circle of the Moon, like Circle of the Hunter's Moon, or Circle of the New Moon, etc. you could have different orders that are kind of like subclasses of the same thing. That would work well.
Yeah, and that would give. Go for it, Brian.
I wanted to say before we got any farther, the one thing I wanted to bring up when you said the channel divinity, channel nature thing, what really bothers me about their implementation of channel nature is they said, oh, we're going to not lock you into just wild shape. We're going to give you channel nature. And then proceeded to have the core class give you nothing but augments to your wild shape. It was dumb. I'll say that right now.
Yeah.
That was my biggest frustration with this whole playtest was like, oh, it's not, that's
what?
And it's almost, yeah, because you get the heat, because the two things you get, so you get wild shape, you get healing bloom.
Why make it an option
and
if there's no options?
Just click options.
It just, I read through it. I read through it a couple times because it's like, and even at some point when you wild shape, you can use a healing bloom as well. And I was like,
so what's the point?
You gotta divest the druid. Like, honestly, I think we should take druid back to its roots, where it is a primal caster that can lean into wild shape if it wants. And I think we should put that kind of leaning into the wild shape in a subclass, or if you still want to augment it going down the line, you need to give other options. I mean, honestly, with what they're trying to do with this stuff, I feel like this would be a great opportunity to, in the subclasses, provide new and exciting ways to use channel nature. I think that'd be great. I think they kind of set that precedent with Paladin, where they were like, Paladin's going to have some core features. Their order or their oath is going to change some of those features, augment them, add other things like that. And then, in the same playtest, they drop the ball with the druid.
Yeah.
Doing that. Although I will say they put them. Yeah.
It would be really neat to see druid become more like the second-y, shaman style character that it was.
Yeah. I would love to see that again. I would love to see, like, you can be a druid and not really do the wild shape, because I feel like that'll open up a lot more options for people who want to play. But I don't know if they're going to do it. I think wild shape is a big pull, and I think a lot of people are going to say, give me my wild shape back. So they're going to kind of keep it as the wild shape centric class.
You could do both though.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the later circles they came out with in the supplement, Circle of Spores, Circle of Stars, you didn't wild shape with those. Wildfire Druid, you didn't wild shape with those usually.
Yeah. So I mean, also the druid is such a small section of the actual player pool statistically, accordingly to the thing.
Yeah.
That
partly because of wild shape.
Yeah. I think that opening it up and making it more of a balanced shamanistic style class that has, like you said, the ability to go, oh, you want to do the wild shaping thing? Well, here's this subclass that does that specific thing. If you want to get into more like the nature spirit side of things and that sort of casting, this is the direction you could go, etc. I think that would be really cool, because I feel like that shamanistic side of druid really isn't present in any other class. I mean, you can kind of force feed a cleric into it, but it's not the same.
I was just thinking, you can do nature cleric, and I've played games where we've had a nature cleric NPC, and it's been like, oh, are they a druid? Are they not? Oh, they have divine magic. They probably a druid. No, they're a cleric. But yeah, you're right. You don't get that feel, and I think they've got a really big opportunity here to change the I guess you would say the definition or identity of druid. Instead of being the one that can turn into animals, they're the one that's attuned with nature, cast nature,
yeah, like
based magic, and
almost the pure animist,
Mm-hmm.
So since we made the mention of the old 2E shaman and stuff like that, one of the things I did not see in this description of the druid is I did not see any mention about like wearing metal.
Yeah, I think that's probably gone the way of the dodo.
And I mean, call me whatever you want, but I like that as a fact. You know, it was not as much of a limiting factor as a lot of people seem to complain that it was, because of homebrewing things. Homebrewing armor that's not made of metal that they can wear if they want to, and different things.
Well, yeah, it was one of those limitations that they threw on it because druids were super powerful in 2nd and 3rd edition. And so they're like, hey, we're going to limit their equipment load because they can pretty much do everything anyways.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see it come back in 5e. Because it would it would limit how people could create their characters, and that is one thing that they are going to very much keep away from, is they want to keep options open and free for everyone. And in some places that's very great, very wonderful, and let you do whatever you want. But I think under constraint, that's where some of the best creativity comes from.
Yes,
100%.
And that limitation it's not nearly as big as people make it out to be. It's not as restrictive. No. It's not hard to find a way to get around it.
Yeah, you might find some really cool desert nomad elves that have mastered the craft of being able to turn like fulgurite glass into blades and things. Like, you could do some really neat stuff with that. I mean, there is some really cool concepts you could do if you wanted to avoid metals and just just look at Dark Sun.
Yeah, that was one of the things that just always made sense to me, and I don't think they should get rid of it. I think it should stay in there, and it's not a problem. It's just not as big of a problem as people make it out to be. It's just
honestly,
to get around it.
Until a player asks, I think most DMs are just going to assume that it's the same. Because I wouldn't have even thought to check that. I'd be like, oh, it's a druid. Yeah, make sure you don't wear metal.
I was looking for it the entire time we were through that. I was looking for it because I didn't see it in that. I didn't see it in that intro.
Yeah, that's.
And so when we got the proficiencies and the armor, or the armor trainings, didn't see it there, and then kept going. I was like,
They forgot to put it in there, or this is one of their sneaky. Well, if we don't put it in, will anybody notice? And you noticed, so you get a golden ticket. So they're going to take you to Wizards headquarters, and as long as you don't, stick your head in the fountain of dice, at the end you'll get a chance to run D&D.
Oh man, I think Brian's got the beginnings of a one shot off the rails story here.
I've got a golden ticket.
Congratulations. This can all be yours now. We've lost faith in our executives.
Yeah. So my last point I've got on the Druid playtest was how they chose to scale the damage via the animal of the land, animal of the sea, animal of the air. Your damage gets less as you get more abilities.
So they're trying to play the balancing game, huh?
Because you start out with a D8 as the animal of the land. That's the first one you get. I think it's level 7 or something. You get animal of the sea, so you can change into things that have a swim speed and can swim. And your damage die goes down to a D6 in that form. And then when you get access to the animals of the sky, it goes down to a D4. And I'm sorry, if you transform into a giant eagle, a large flying creature, those claws do not do a D4 damage.
Yeah, I think they're trying to reinforce what they perceive those animals should be used for, which are going to be far less combat and more utilitarian.
See, yes, but no, because you have to be such a high level to get those anyway.
Oh no, I understand what you mean.
Especially the animal of the sea. How often are you going to be like, animal of the sea, I'm doing this for combat purposes, when you're in the water? why are you taking a hit on damage in a situation that's not going to exist in 90% of games?
Yeah.
Now,
That's
90%
very
is
valid.
arbitrary, I realize that, but how many games have any of us run or played in where underwater has been a huge faucet of it?
A handful.
Salt marsh.
Yeah, like maybe bits here and there, but it's just I don't see the reason for lessening the damage die for a creature that can swim or a creature that can fly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like you said, that they're trying to distill. They tried to distill these stat blocks down to make them as simple as possible, and that's sadly one of the downsides when you simplify stuff down. 5e overall runs into those problems. It's the downside to making a system that is much more accessible for a lot of people. Just this is a case where they kind of need to backpedal a bit, and they need to provide us some more options.
Like, I mean, I see that too, but what's simpler? Having 3 different damage dies, or just having the same damage die the entire way?
Well, one thing they could have done is they could have made like a resource that Wild Shape took. Like your Wild Shape pool, you buy so many abilities when you Wild Shape using that pool. So like you could
you're getting too complicated, Don.
That way you could adjust it up and down really easy. Because I mean, you could keep that limited to a proficiency score bonus, and you would be able to buy into those bonuses, if that makes sense.
I think what did I say? I said model them after Warlock. Give them an invocation that applies to their stuff. I think I called it like primal instincts or something like that, which I think I shamelessly ripped off of Pathfinder Second Edition. But like full disclosure, but I was looking for a name and I was like, what does Pathfinder do? But like that was my idea. It was like, you get these as you become more attuned. And I feel like this solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You can get a more flavorful Wild Shape, but you're kind of limited in what you can do as a Wild Shape. So like, let's say you decide to take, I want to have a higher AC when I'm, Wild Shaped, and you take this and it just gives you a blanket increase to your AC. That's great. But however, in taking that, you were not able to take the, the
swim speed.
Boost in stealth. Yeah, the swim speed or the boost in stealth or something like that.
Or you can do ridiculous amounts of damage, but you aren't going to fly very fast. You can have trade-offs, and that way they pigeonhole themselves instead of making it super complex.
I mean, even your fly speed here is 20 or 40 feet.
I never understood why people had such an issue with fly speeds and stuff.
Well, it's because if they're too fast, then what you can actually do is like at the beginning of a campaign, like let's say hypothetically, you and the rest of your party, you have an item, we'll say that it's a ring, and you need to get it to this mountain. You need to throw it in. If you have a player that can turn into a giant eagle and they're fast, your players are just going to ask, well, like, why are we not just flying the eagle all the way to the mountain? Like, why are we walking? Why is we taking so long?
Because a big object up in the sky makes an awesome target.
Nah.
Dragons like things that are flying through the air. They're easy to spot.
That's my players are trying to currently scale a mountain, and they were talking about, they were like, oh, well, like we can all go in. The one character is a genie lock, so has the lamp. They're like, well, we can all go in there and one of you can turn into a bird and you can fly up. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. You have been hearing everybody talk about the very, very large bird that lives in the area, right?
Animals are territorial.
You saw this bird. Yeah.
I do love that the genie lock has the I Dream of Genie nod.
Oh, we just had the genie lock bring everybody in, And as he's describing it, that's all our Discord chat was I dream of genie gifts.
Yeah.
It was just, yes.
It's perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I think there needs to be, they need to give feats back or features back in some way. And it's just going to kind of depend on, what is your intent here? Do you want, every wild shape? You have to kind of pick your things. Obviously it's going to slow things down in the moment. And I'm sure at some point somebody will create, well, just use this loadout if you're doing this loadout if you're doing that, this loadout if you're doing that. People will do that. Or it's going to be a case of, well, I want this druid to be the stealthiest druid. So they have had to invest their druidic instincts into stealth and getting, being able to fit in areas and things like that. I mean, I think there are arguments for both.
Yeah, for sure.
So another thing that we didn't really touch on that I meant to mention too was the changing in elemental wild shapes. So instead of wild shaping into elementals at, what is it, level 10, level 11, something like that currently, at 6th level, you get an elemental wild shape where basically you just choose acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. You have resistance to that damage type, and you can deal that damage type with your attacks rather than bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing. And they, give an example of like flavor that you can describe what it looks like, but you're no longer able to be an elemental.
Do the element walk.
Yeah. Are we indifferent? Do we hate it?
I think it needs to be treated differently.
I think a lot of my problems with how this was done were tainted by the fact that I had problems with how the core class was handling the wild shape. And because we have a somewhat weak and boring wild shape in the core class, like, I feel like this is pretty cool. Like, and I feel like this is an interesting way to try to balance things by not giving an elemental form that could get a little crazy. But I think because of the fact that we had just a very light and bland wild shape, like you look at this and you're like, oh, finally some flavor. Thank you for the seasoning on my boiled chicken.
Then you find out that it's monk fruit.
Oh,
or cilantro, because it just tastes like soap.
I have that problem too. It's so sad.
Yep.
I do not.
Same thing with kale and a bunch of others. There's a enzyme in them that makes it taste like soap to me.
It stinks. Because I know so many good recipes where it's like, and you use cilantro, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Ruins it.
All right. Last thing for real on druids, at least for my thing, is I did kind of like, I think it's the combat wild shape.
All things and claws.
The swift transformation. Nope, maybe it's a higher level thing. Where does it go? But basically, you can switch between your wild shape in and out of it without expending multiple uses in like a combat situation.
See, I would think of a really cool use for that being a freaking monk that transitions in and out of wild shape while fighting and using a martial arts style.
Well, that would be cool.
You could do it.
Yeah, that I've always wanted to do that, like have a monk druid that's like this dwarf that's like a hermit out in the sticks and studies combat styles based on how animals exist. And just like that's their whole purpose, is to find enlightenment through studying these different martial arts and trying to master each form. which inherently grants them their form too. Yeah, I just imagine
it's the 13th level base class feature.
Just imagine this monk doing all of these stances and fighting, and then transitioning into this huge gorilla to block something, and then flipping backwards as a panther, and then I just thought that'd be badass.
Well, they make it so they have to be the same wild shape form when they do this, which I kind of get. But doing something like that, I could see that being really cool and being like, okay, we can make some modifications.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do like that feature, that alternating forms, letting you, because if you're Circle of the Moon, they have the ability to let you cast abjuration spells. But being able to oh shit, I need to heal myself or heal someone else, you can drop the form, do that, and go back into the form.
Yeah.
That is pretty neat.
I feel like with Circle of the Moon that they should almost split the elemental stuff and the combat focused stuff and make them two separate circles, especially if this is the new core druid, and then you just have circle of the I'm really good at wild shape, and the circle of I just want to be an elemental form of an animal.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
because then you could go a nature spirit path or a true animal shapes path.
Yeah, and I feel like that would balance things out a bit more, because you'd have a lot more room to do those combat based elements of the wild shape, whereas you could have something else that does elements and just focuses on the elements and just expands on that.
Yeah.
All right, Paladin. So one of the biggest things about Paladin that I didn't like was how they did lay on hands. You can expend 5 points to get rid of the poison condition.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's fine. But you can't get rid of other conditions until you're level 15. When you get a second level spell at 5th level, that could get rid of those conditions, but you can't use your lay on hands to do it until you're 15th level.
Yeah, they're trying to get paladins to use their spells more.
So the divine smite less.
Yep.
Yeah, sure, but why is that so late? Why is it level 15 that you can get rid of? What are all the conditions of this? It's too late in the game. Blind, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, stunned. I don't see disease mentioned, so maybe they're filtering out disease from the repertoire in 1D&D, because I don't know if I've seen it anywhere, but that was one of the things about a paladin. You can cure a disease too.
What's interesting is the ability that it's replacing, which is cleansing touch, which was you touch somebody and end a spell effect.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I thought it was interesting because I felt like it was a sudden huge drop in power for them. I never ran into that cleansing touch because it's level 15 and it takes forever to get there, even if you get there.
This just seems really underpowered for the 15th level ability.
Yeah, it's tricky because, like you said, it's lesser restoration. It's a free casting. Yeah. Well, a free casting of lesser restoration. So I feel like it should be, I don't know, maybe they should put this earlier and then have restoring touch be greater restoration. Could you imagine if maybe, let's say, instead of 5, you have to spend 10 or some larger amount to do greater restoration? I mean, that'll reduce levels of exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be potent. I feel like that would be a nice power up.
I like that, and I feel like that's power level appropriate too, as a 15th level.
Yeah, I could see that.
At that point, you've got 75 points of lay on hands. Even if it takes 25 of that and you can only do it 3 times before that pull recharge, or even more of it. I don't care. That's still a hugely beneficial thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels appropriate as the power level compared to, oh look, I'm 15th level. I can do the same thing I could have done with a level 2 spell 10 levels ago.
Yeah, again, it seems like they're trying to aim or angle what the class is supposed to do in their eyes, as far as from a design perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want you just holding all your spells to nuke.
Yep.
And it's tricky to balance by nerf because it never feels good. And I, like you said, I don't know if that's the right choice here. I think lesser restoration at level 15. I don't like it.
Misses the mark. I don't like it. And
it's.
Go for it.
You go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna say, no, you go. I said you go.
Well, because I can see what you guys are saying about they're trying to make it so you don't just play it as a nuker and you do other stuff with it. And yeah, maybe, but then they also come in with this free casting ability that they gave the paladin, which you get one of your prepared spells from your. I think it has to be an oath spell if I'm reading it correctly, but one of the spells from your oath, you can cast it for free without expending a spell slot. Once per day, essentially, because once per long rest.
Mm-hmm.
That's giving you another spell slot as the paladin. So that doesn't really dissuade someone from going the nuke route because you have a free spell that you can't use for a divine smite, but you've got a free spell.
Yeah, but it gives them something to use that spell for. I don't know. I can see what they're trying to do. It's just not the best way to do it.
I like the free casting thing because you do have so few spells as a paladin overall that can do something. Having these devotion spells that don't count as some of your prepared spells is just, and having like a free cast of just one of them is kind of cool. It's that kind of either that last ditch, I'm running out, but I can still do this, or that initial burst of going in and doing something, because like smites are still part of the devotion spells too. It's not the divine smite, but they have other things on there. So I like that. The other thing I think I'll let Brian start with this one this time because he also likes it. If he doesn't say this, then I'll just say it later.
Find Steed?
Yep.
The free Find Steed?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the times that I've played Paladin in games where I know that I'm going to be leveling up. That is one of the few things that I will plan out ahead of time is what will my Find Steed look like? How will that be important to my character? And it feels right. It feels like you got the knight with the mount, and like it just feels awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's useful when you can do it. It might not come up all the time. So I feel like giving it for free once a day, and then you can use a spell slot otherwise. I think that's the best way to do it and encourage. If you have a paladin, that paladin's going to have his horse or, whatever it is, yak, rhinoceros,
elk.
A dude with coconut shells.
That's a good one. So what I did notice about that though is I didn't see a mention of Find Greater Steed. As a higher level one, because at 5th level is when they give you that Faith Steed that you can just do for free, which is nice to just have that, as Brian was saying. But that's the other thing I didn't see.
Maybe they'll have a subclass specialization for it.
They do reference mounted combat rules, which we haven't seen in the playtest yet. So maybe you're right, and that could come out later on there.
Because they might have a paladin subclass specialization that's all about mounted combat. like a cavalry subclass.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be a lot of fun.
Cavalier was a cool fighter subclass.
Because they did, let's see. Oh, where did it go? They had something else with the steed in this playtest where, any like if you cast a spell that restored your health, it would also restore health to the steed. I think maybe that's in the stat block for it. Which I wasn't a huge fan of the stat block overall. I think it kind of takes a little bit away, maybe, but
it was more interesting than the druid stat blocks. I thought that when I was going over that, I was like, huh. This is a way they could fix it. Like if each stat block had its own designations like this. That's your standard spell stat block nowadays, because I think they started that in Tasha's and then have just brought it over with each new supplement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Brian, what do you think of the Abjure Foes ability? The ninth level ability, as a magic action, you expend 1 use of your channel divinity to overwhelm foes with divine awe. As you present your holy symbol or weapon, you can target a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier that you can see within 60 feet of yourself. They have to make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they have the dazed and frightened condition for 1 minute or until they take damage. If they succeed, they still have the dazed condition for 1 minute or until it takes damage.
So your paladin has Lines of Majesty?
That reference is lost on me right now.
Never seen Trogdor?
It's been way too long.
Lines for Majesty?
It's been way too long.
I saw this and I was like, so you're telling me that I feel like this is degrees of success is built in to this, and I'm very excited. Like, you use this ability, you're going to get something. You're going to daze these enemies. However, you might get a chance to daze and frighten them. So it felt nice, and it's a defensive ability too, which I feel like paladins are supposed to be that defensive element of the party, or they can be, and having this lets them kind of act like that and just push them away. But it's balanced nicely because you have that charisma modifier, which bases how many creatures you can handle that with.
And so for the day's condition, because this is a new condition,
Sunbro approves. I too wish to be grossly incandescent.
So when you are dazed, you can move or take one action, not both, and you cannot take a bonus action or a reaction.
Okay, so it's like
basically
slow. Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. It's the same thing, but it lasts for 1 minute or until they take damage. So, you can help this be defensive, as Brian was saying, or help you get away. Or, create some space as you need it, whatever you need to do. And, yeah, especially for, like, a channel divinity, I like that degrees of success, like Brian was saying, because you had so few channel divinities. And, like, it's one of those things where you're, especially when you get to higher levels as a paladin, it's like, oh, I want to use my channel divinity here, but what are the odds that this thing is, like, going to fail my save? Not meet my save DC. And then your channel divinity just, poof.
I just see this paladin being like, praise the sun!
It's cool. I like it. I feel like it's a good ability.
I was kind of indifferent.
And I like the dazed condition.
Yeah, I do like the dazed condition. I was kind of indifferent at first. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I read the dazed condition. I was like, okay, that's actually not too bad.
I wonder how well it goes.
More about it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I wonder how well it goes with the confused condition.
There he is. Okay, what else was on here? Dun, dun, dun. was it for the Oath of Devotion? They gave a 14th level ability called Holy Nimbus, which as a bonus action you can imbue your aura of protection with holy power. So it gains benefits for 1 minute or until you end it as a bonus action. Whenever an enemy starts its turn within your aura, it takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier.
So it's the Paladin's golden fart from WoW?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. But I figure that's not like massive damage, but still a little bit of extra damage. You know, you're looking at probably easily 8 points of damage there at 14th level.
Yeah.
If not more. Sunlight, the aura is filled with bright light that is sunlight. There are creatures that have sunlight sensitivity or can't be in sunlight or different things. So that gives you kind of that protection. And you can only use it once per long rest unless you use a 4th level or higher spell slot. So like minimal damage for the 14th level ability, and it is kind of niche for where the sunlight would be effective. But in those situations, they're useful.
Yeah, it's one of those cool ones where like the further you go up in class levels, the more situational the powers I feel like end up becoming. And that's actually a decent one that would be a good sidebar ability.
Yeah, there was a Holy Nimbus ability originally, but it only did a flat 10. It did a flat 10 radiant damage. So we're seeing it's kind of tuned down at this point. But if you really dump into charisma, you have the potential for getting it as high or higher. Sunlight's no joke when you need it.
Yeah.
That's why
if I ever play in
like
a campaign
with
Brian DMing, I am going to play this paladin and I am going to have that Holy Nimbus because I know it will come in handy.
That's until I start throwing constructs at you that just look undead. Dragonbone Golem.
Oh, my players hated me for that one.
What do you mean this isn't undead?
This insane goblin alchemist that uses people's parts as construct materials, so they look like zombies, but they're all mechanical.
I'll write that down.
Steampunk zombies. Yeah, steampunk zombies, man.
Halloween's almost here. We're at the halfway mark. Another thing that I like they did with this one is the Smite of Protection. I just like the wording too, but just the leading into that protection side a little bit even more. Your Divine Smite radiates protective energy that allows you and your allies to stay in the fight. Whenever you use a Divine Smite, you can choose yourself or an ally, and the chosen creature gains temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus the level of the spell slot used for the Divine Smite. So it's not even something you have to like expend extra resources for. It's something that just happens when you use your Divine Smite on top of
So it's just a rider
damage. Yeah, because just whenever you use Divine Smite, here you go, 1d8 plus whatever. Might only be 2.
And I could see them. I think this is going to be a thing with the orders. I think all the orders at probably around 6th level are going to get something added to their smite. And that also might be why they don't want to let you divine smite and cast a spell, but like you said, the wording's a little weird on it.
That is true. That would be a reason to not let you cast a spell and do divine smite in the same turn. Because Brian and I talked about this a little bit earlier. Like one of the things I'm like, wait, you're taking away my ability to cast Shield of Faith and my divine smite in the same turn. How dare you? Because the wording right now is you cannot cast a spell and do your divine smite in the same turn. So you could still do a divine smite like as an attack for opportunity if you hit, but on the same turn you can't do them. And I can see them wanting to lower the nukiness because you wouldn't want to do like a banishing smite that does 5d10 damage and then throw a divine smite on top of that. Throw in that 5d10 plus another 6d8 plus the weapon damage, and that I can see why not. But I think it would just be of equal benefit to say you cannot do 2 smites within the same turn. So you can't cast a smite spell and do a divine smite, or you can't divine smite on 2 attacks. I think that would also kind of play the same thing, because when I was playing Kurtlu, he would use support spells or spells to do stuff that was not damage all the time, and then throw in a divine smite with his attack or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Bonus action, shield of faith, and then throw on someone else himself, and then go in and do the attack and throw a divine smite. And I don't think there's any reason why that shouldn't be allowed.
That's fair.
If they're trying to make everything baseline where you can't do 2 leveled spells in the same turn, like with the casters, okay. But the paladin also doesn't get as many or high level spells, so I don't think it's much of a balancing issue there.
Yeah, I could see that.
I could be wrong, but I'd have to experience it to see, and I don't think it's.
Yeah, they could probably change the wording so it just specifically targets smites.
Mm-hmm. They threw changes in here for epic boons. So epic boons now increase a stat as well as add some sort of effect instead of just having an effect. And it also says that the ability score increase they give to a maximum of 30.
Mm.
So 20th level, they're letting you kind of max out a stat at 30 there within the rules. Let's see, what else was I looking at on here? Let's go to my notes page. Oh, I did have a kind of a question though, actually, about the paladin. They gave them sacred weapon as their level 1 ability or level 2, but it only adds to your hit modifier and not your damage. Are we worried about stacking sacred weapon with things, do you think?
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, they're trying to balance out those damage curves. So just you have, and I think we saw this before, and specific examples are failing me, but that's one of their themes right now is they just want to normalize the damage output of players as opposed to having these spikes and novas that some of the classes can do, just because it's going to be easier to balance encounters based off of an assumption or a close estimate on the damage per round from the party.
Well, it's the 3rd level feature for the Oath of Devotion. As a bonus action, you can use your Channel Divinity to imbue a simple or martial weapon with positive energy. So for 1 minute, you can add your Charisma modifier to attack rolls you make with the weapon. And when you hit, you can cause it to do radiant damage instead of normal damage. And it's also a torch.
Yeah.
It emits bright light in the 20 foot and dim light in the 20 foot. It's also a torch. Because, your Charisma modifier, you could get really good and have a +4 or +5 at level 3. That's not impossible. So, but it also is like a Channel Divinity usage to get that for 1 minute. So I'm I can see the damage spike side, but I'm also is that really that big of a? I don't know. You don't see many things in D&D now where it just adds to your 2 hit and not to your damage.
Yeah.
And it just stood out to me that was different than that was just adding to 1.
Yeah.
And it feels like it kind of goes against one of their goals going into this, which is making everything a lot more uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So, if this is the only you get a bonus to hit but not a bonus to damage, it kind of feels like we've now seen our first exception to their what they've been trying to do.
Yeah.
The other thing they made a specific stated here is how long a long rest takes, what you can do to still get a long rest, what happens if a long rest is interrupted and then you have to continue it, and also that you can only take one long rest per day. You have to wait 16 hours from completion of a long rest before you can take another one. So you can't have players being like, oh, we're just going to take another long rest. But what they
a lot of
go for it.
I was gonna say I think that rule is one that a lot of people forget. Is the one long rest, because I think it's there's some sort of wording on that currently where it's like, well, you can't just like long rest and then long rest because you need to wait for something.
But it's like it's laid out here with a time frame, so anybody trying to question it would be like, but it's like, nope, here you go. That's like clear.
Yeah, it's much cleaner this time around. It's much more concise. I really like all the exceptions to or the interrupts for long rest. I think it's kind of nice to see that spelled out and have it make sense.
And then also spelling out after an interruption, continuing what it takes. Like, you can resume a long rest immediately after an interruption, but it requires an additional hour per interruption. So if you have one interruption during a long rest, it's going to take 9 hours.
You have 3, you end up waiting 11 hours.
So one of the other things they changed, though, was you now regain all hit dice at a long rest.
I don't like that.
Well, that means that we can... No.
I was waiting to see if one of you was going to bring this up.
At that point, I feel like
well, no, I thought about it. I'm like...
I feel like the point of hit dice goes right out the window.
Well, I was like, sweet, that means I can just like... You can do encounter after encounter and after encounter every freaking day. And then I'm like, that is so much combat. Now it's just a tactical combat game with a little bit of other stuff. That's way overbalanced. Like, no.
Yeah, and I mean the game already has a sort of combat tax.
Yeah.
As it is the best way to drain your party's resources.
Yeah.
And just I saw that, and I think they said it before where they were like, you get all your hit dice back, and I just roll my eyes and I'm like, well then what's the point of hit dice?
Yeah.
Like just throw them out. Just throw them in the garbage. We don't need them anymore. If we're just gonna, they're not gonna mean anything. Is you can roll these 8 dice because you're level 8, but don't worry. When you wake up the next day, it's like the day before didn't happen. And maybe it's because I'm getting older, but if I have a really hard day after a long rest, I still feel beat up. That means that my hit dice are not full.
Yep. Anybody who's gone to the gym regularly knows exactly how hit dice work.
It's coming back the next day.
No, it's 2 days after. Like,
oh yeah, it used to only be one. It used to only be 1 day, in my 20s, but then 30s is like 2 days to 2.5, maybe 3 now. I don't know.
No, the worst day is always the day after the day after. Of course, I hit heavier weights, so
yeah, it's because you've compounded on top of what you did that day before. You're like, I don't feel bad. I can continue doing things. You're still a little excited from the exercise the day before, and then you're right. That's when it hits you. You're just like that next day. You're like, I've made grave miscalculations.
Yep, I am way older than I thought I was. Wait a minute.
But not in the D&D world.
Nope, it's just, nope. You got a punctured lung, long rest, good to go.
It's so hard to drain resources, and I feel like taking this away is just one more thing. And like, is it going to come up all the time in games and campaigns? No, probably not. But it just, I don't know, it felt balanced.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I was like, okay, got to bring this up because I'm pretty sure Brian and Don will have thoughts.
Well, I've never been a fan of the wound system in D&D anyways, but that's just my own personal preference because there's no stakes in it really. There's no longer lasting stakes. If you get brought all the way to death saves, there is no lingering damage to your body. You go to sleep that night and the disembowelment is healed. The nerve damage is fixed.
Yeah. And I've played around with trying to introduce things to fix that.
Yeah.
Like after the first time you go down and come back up, all subsequent drops to 0 give you a point of exhaustion.
Yep.
Or, if you hit death saves, then after combat, we're going to give you a wound and I had an expanded table at one point where it's like, these things will have to be dealt with. But it just doesn't feel like it fits into the system right, just because it wasn't made to do that. It's made to just reset everything.
Yep. No, I gotcha.
So another thing, maybe I've been doing 5e wrong. Rules is written, but everyone adds their proficiency bonus to unarmed strikes.
For the damage or to the attack?
To the attack.
Yeah, that's been normal.
I feel like that should be a monk thing.
No, because you're proficient in knowing how to throw a punch.
Not everybody's proficient in knowing how to throw a punch.
I know, but that's how you calculate for ability scores, though. Ability scores can overwrite your proficiency bonus. Like, if you have a big enough negative in dexterity, you will not throw a punch, even if you try real hard. So, but I get what you mean.
But what about adding proficiency bonus to a shove for everyone?
No.
That's
if anybody's ever taken a martial art or done wrestling and knows how to throw somebody or shove somebody, it's a skill. It's not something you can just do. At least in my opinion. They do drills on throws for a reason. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I could see why they did it for simplicity's sake, but
Brian?
It's another one of those things where like end of the day, it's probably not going to come up a lot. My characters that are doing unarmed strikes that aren't built for unarmed strikes, normally they're doing it to each other. And it's I'm angry and I want to punch him. I'm like, roll for it.
Yep.
They're like, what? No, I was kidding. Roll for it. The guy's like, I just got revived. I'm like, roll for it.
Yep.
I want to see if you knock him over.
Yep.
So again, it might not ever come up, but I feel like it's one of those things where we need some sort of rule so that the people that are good at punching and part of their story would involve and those that aren't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
My last note, well, I got two more notes, but one is just something I like, the other one is a question. So they changed cure spells to be the abjuration school. So healing word, cure wounds are abjuration magic school.
Yuck.
It should be necromancy.
Yep.
Yes, it should be necromancy, but I like abjuration more than I did evocation.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they ever be evocation?
That's what they are right now.
Energy.
No, they're not.
Are they not?
Cure wounds is necromancy.
No.
Cure wounds is necromancy.
Hold on.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna look it up.
It used to be. I think your 3 and 3/5 brain is coming into play, Don. We'll let Brian, since he's already in the process of looking it up, be the deciding factor. Yeah.
What?
It's evocation. Yeah, because the theory is evocation is putting power into things, and the idea is you're putting your healing power into the person that you're healing.
Not in the book I have. I'm not joking. I've looked it up. Like, I was
I
like,
think we had this discussion before, Don, too.
that's like resurrection is necromancy,
Yeah, that's
and
to
true
me. It just
resurrection is necromancy.
it just makes more sense. It makes more sense.
Yeah, because you're
I'll
controlling
say-
life essence.
I'll say Black Flag got that right
Yeah.
at least. Black Flag has necromancy for the healing magics, so they got that right. At least.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like you're flipping reverse on the vacuum that is necromancy magic, and you're like, okay, we're not going to take your life. We're going to put it back in you.
Yeah.
Yes, my note here says cure spells is abjuration school. I like. Nothing wrong with necromancy though. Should be necromancy.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I understand why they're doing.
So,
they're
cure
doing
wounds and
abjuration because of the
fireball are the
druids.
same wizard school.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nah. I'm not.
Yeah,
okay with
it's
that.
the same. It's really the same if you think about it.
Don just likes necromancy so much more, and it does make more sense overall to me too.
Well, yeah,
but, like abjuration at least kind of makes more sense because like an abjuration wizard, is like,
well, they're all about banishment.
That.
Well, they're all about banishment and protection. Abjuration's about cancellation.
Yeah, it just like fits kind of the idea a little bit more than evocation.
I could kind of see that, but it's still
not the best fit.
No.
Maybe somebody just has the wrong idea of necromancy on the team, and
maybe they were trying to stay away from the 1980s satanic panic parents. I don't know. Who knows?
So the last note is
that's weird.
So banishment right now, 5e rules, they don't get a save every round, correct?
No, they're banished for like a minute.
Yeah, they get the initial save, and if they fail the initial save, they're banished for a minute. But there are no saves in that minute.
Yep.
The caster might have to, make a concentration save depending on what's happening, but banishment itself does not have saves. So are they changing that in the 1D playtest? Because banishing smite has a save each round.
I heard something about that.
So that's what I was wondering. Are they changing banishment to have a save each round now as well?
Yeah, they did. It was last one, and they had swapped banishment over to it's save every round. And they had also put specifications on who could get sent back to their specific plane. Which I also thought was interesting. I kind of didn't like because I was like, I like the idea of if you're on a planar adventure and you go up against a powerful caster, they're just like,
go home.
No, go by. And they just send one of your people home. And if you don't figure out how to revert that in a minute, oh man, you're going to have a barbarian running around somewhere in your home plane trying to find someone to send him back or her.
Yep, that'll be a fun shopping episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like they did specify. I do remember that, and I was trying to remember on the save thing, and it says they're in. I don't understand you being incapacitated and still getting a saving throw, because when you're banished, you're incapacitated. It says that. Now, when you're incapacitated making death saving throws, that's just your body trying to, not die. But I don't really, it doesn't really make sense to me if you're incapacitated, how are you making a charisma saving throw?
Maybe it's your force of personality fighting against it. I don't know. They tried to do it for balance purposes.
Yeah, that's probably why. So I know I said my last thing, but this is still tied into this, so it's still kind of the same thing. So they also mention in the Banishing Smite of casting it above 5th level, but as a paladin, you're not going to have. Well, actually, I guess if you crop multi-class, you could if you did just a few levels in paladin. But like our Banishing Smite, is that something that's being made available to other people? or is it still just like the specific few that get it?
I don't know.
Because I know like some of the war, like the Hexblade gets access to some of the.
Yeah, Hexblade gets it. Battlesmith gets it. So maybe down the line they're thinking,
high
if
level.
yeah.
I just like it specifically like mentions for upcasting on that one to deal more damage, like a six because it's a 5th level spell itself, and upcasting 6th level and above.
Yeah.
But like if you're a low level paladin, you wouldn't get Banishing Smite as a spell because you have to have your max level spells as a paladin to get it as a paladin. I just thought that was kind of weird. I don't know if that was just an oversight or if maybe like Banishing Smite is available to the Hexblade. You said, and high level Hexblade gets, their Mystic Arcanum. They get a higher level spell slot, I guess, but they're still only 5th level max if it's not their Mystic Arcanum.
Yeah, I guess I have to assume that they're preparing for classes like, I'm guessing, Warlock.
Okay.
Which means are we going to get to see? Is that going to be the pack that we get to see? Is Hexblade?
That would be interesting.
If that was the subclass they gave for the Warlock, I would be surprised.
Yeah, it's in a weird precedent.
Yeah.
It would definitely be an interesting design choice because it would have to showcase a completely different subset for the Warlock instead of being all Eldritch Blast focused like the majority of the classes.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what they do with Warlock.
I really hope they do something to fix that, but we'll see.
They haven't really changed the Eldritch Blast spell all that much. I think it's still basically the same. Or no, we haven't seen it yet, have we? They just mentioned that it wasn't on the list, but that didn't mean it was gone.
Yeah. Well, I heard people speculating that it was going to be a class feature, not a spell.
Like a Paladin Smite that you burn spell slots for.
Yeah.
That's right, class feature. Oh, maybe that should be coming next. We haven't seen anybody from the mage group, so that is kind of where we're headed next, I think.
It'd be interesting if any of the buffs that you would get for Eldritch Blast require you to spend a bonus action to activate them.
That would be
cool.
A
reaction.
Yeah. Start like pruning down the available bonuses to strengthen a single aspect. I like that idea. Like
I think it's the best way to go. Yeah, because my Warlock right now didn't try hard and is a cannon.
Yeah.
And on that first Eldritch Blast roll is just like, well, I add this and I add this and I add this.
Yeah, like in my game that's like almost done now, the Warlock is level 16. Did take a few levels, or at least one level or 2 levels in Sorcerer. But yeah, they have 3 Eldritch Blasts, so they just have their dice color coded for the D20 and D10. They roll all 3 of them at the same time, and then they have to add their Charisma modifier, and then they've also got the pushback invocation, and so it's like each time they Eldritch Blast, it's like their bonus to hit, they hardly ever miss. Like most stuff they're up against, they've got a plus 14, I think.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So most of the stuff they go against, he's like, tells me the lowest number, and if that hits, he's like, okay, all 3 hit, and then does the math, and it's like, at a minimum, if all 3 hit with his Charisma modifier bonus right now, it's like 21 damage. And that's if all the damage dice were 1s, and then if he adds a hex in there. So yeah, Brian, I think, got it exactly right with adding this and this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's either going to be a case of you can only add one thing to your Eldritch Blast, or it's going to just eat into your action economy.
Which I think is a good way to go.
Yeah. Curious. All right. We're going to do speed round with Black Flag here because we went a little bit later than we did, but I want to touch on it a little bit since we said
do you want me to use that quote you told me to use?
Yep, go for it, Don. Throw that out there to start with.
I said about Black Flag, I said literally it's just the opposite of my cup of tea. Everything is higher powered and more high fantasy, but I can muddle through it, I suppose.
So the message on it was like, hey, we need to make sure we make it through all the material between the two of us at least, because I know Brian's made it through all of it. So I'm working on the one D&D, you work on Black Flag, and then we'll meet in the middle somewhere and get some cross action going.
In my opinion, there's nothing about it that jumps out at me and says, I'm original. It's Kobold Press presents 5e with some extra bells and whistles.
I totally intended to, like, on the Kobold Press playtests, I totally intended to write posts for them, and I just couldn't get excited enough to write a post.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be mean. I was like, sweet, maybe they got something in it that I like, and I'm like, this is just a reskin of 5e with some extra bits in it. Like, nothing in it screamed at me, hey, this is, a novel and original way of doing this that would be more fun. It was just the same thing. The same thing.
And like, none of us are knocking on the fact that Kobold Press is doing this. They're trying to get something else out there that's awesome. We also know they've created a lot of 5e supplements that they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
To go with this, and that makes sense. They even give notes in the playtest about how to convert the 5e stuff to what they've got for their system. So it makes sense. But yeah, like, I was expecting some more originality.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised with how much of it's kind of a clone of the SRD, to be honest. And I was like, I mean, I get it that they're probably playing it safe because, like you said, they have a ton of content that they can just feed into this. But it feels like they should have kicked off their playtest with something new and novel to really kind of set themselves apart.
Because, yeah, I was looking at the spell list, and because I went through the playtest too, and as I mentioned this before, every spell is just the spell from 5e, except for the ones that had a name in front of them, because it's, it's Floating Disc instead of Tensor's Floating Disc, it's Hideous Laughter instead of Tasha's Hideous Laughter. But every spell was one I recognized as being from 5e. There was none of their original content, and they have so much of it. Why is it not part of this Black Flag playtest?
Yeah, I don't know. It fell flat. I was like, okay.
I also really didn't like what they did with Wizard. I'm biased towards casting classes, but looking at Wizard, like, and I think somebody on the Beyond the Golden Vault team made the comment that why take Barbarian when you can take Battle Mage and get the same thing at level 3? Because you get an AC boost and you're resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage.
All you have to do is cast a leveled spell each round,
which is super easy.
Yeah. So I've got 6 bullet points I made that I'm going to run through real fast on all of them. So
sounds good.
Hold your comments since we're speed running. First point, they gave fighters martial actions, but those martial actions are actually bonus actions.
Yep.
The wording just, okay, the martial actions is what they're calling them, but each one was a bonus action thing that you did.
Yeah, they should have just stuck to a Pathfinder mechanism and made it a more elegant maneuver system.
Yeah, the wording is weird. For the wizard, there's no chance of failure for transcribing spells.
Nope.
You just expend the time and the money and it's done. There's no roll, which I hate personally. Like, I think, you're dabbling in unknown arcane powers. There should be a failure chance.
Yeah, that goes back to that magical gamble. I mean, that's part of the fun of playing like mages and stuff is you are literally messing with forces you probably shouldn't. So the backlash part of that is great. It's always been kind of the cool theme.
Yeah, and I play a wizard right now that is a poor wizard, and so whenever I have to do that, it's like tense for me, but I'm okay with that. I like it. It's like, oh shit, this fails. Like, when's the next chance I'm going to have this much money? The other thing is, so in Black Flag, wizards are the only ritualistic casters, but there is a mage talent called the Ritualist. Now, wizards are limited based on their level by how many rituals they can do. But the ritualist gets a book that they can put rituals in, but it doesn't give them a limit anywhere of how many they can do.
It's just how many they can learn or, pick up on the road, purchase, find, etc.
So does that mean somebody with the ritualistic talent can do more rituals than a wizard?
Probably.
Like, I think there needs to be some clarification on that, because like, they're taking that away from wizards in the one D&D playtest as being their thing unless you take a feat. And so, yeah, I don't know. The other thing, if you do the create familiar instead of find familiar, there was a change there too. It lowers your maximum health by 1 to do it.
That's interesting.
Because you're infusing like a vessel with your blood. I can see why they did it that way, because you're infusing some of your blood into a vessel to bring it to life.
Do you get it back if it dies?
Yes.
Okay.
But
I would almost like do a hit die.
Yeah, like 1 hit point. It's like,
I mean, you get them back. You get them all back after a long rest. So
while the familiar is active, you don't get that. You are down that 1 health.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a long rest, you're still down that max 1
I kind of like the idea of, if you do that, you have to trade out, and basically like a hit die is stuck in limbo instead, because that to me is more like a vitality reserve. Like blood loss to me is always one of those things that would be handled by hit die loss more so than just hit points. I don't know.
Yeah, like, wizards.
I'm a weirdo.
Wizards have low health anyway.
Yeah.
And now you're taking away 1 of their max health, which could be a big deal. But also at high levels, it's not a big deal. But like, I can see why they did it. I think the hit die to me would be a better way to do that. But I'm not exactly sure. I assume based on what I've seen, they're doing hit die the same exact way 5e does. So I think removing a hit die would be a much better way to do that.
Yeah, because then it's not a punch in the face early on.
Yeah, like level 1. Let's say you don't have a con bonus. You've got 6 health. Now you've got 5 health if you want this familiar, and you are literally scared of everything, because everything can knock you unconscious now.
Yeah, I don't like that. You lose like 12% of your health.
I just keep seeing the blur on Brian's thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian's just a beard.
Just fading into the background.
Just raw.
Sometimes when the lighting's down, my my auto detect, it's just like, yeah, he's not there. Let's just blur him out.
But it just doesn't, to your face.
Except for the magic beard. Yeah. The beard is like, I have too much power.
Okay, and then one of the things, like, I didn't see detect magic as a spell, I don't believe. Maybe I did, I don't know. But
no, it's an ability, and that's stupid.
Yeah, the magic sense.
Yeah, I hate it. It's stupid. Don't do that.
And why is that one proficiency bonus +1 time when everything else listed in is proficiency bonus number of times?
Because everything is magic.
Everything is magic.
Yeah.
It's cool when you're part of a team.
See, what I like doing, especially when you have some really investigative players in a magic dungeon, is like, everything is glowing different colors. Would you like to try to discern them? Because this could get really confusing.
Yeah, like when there's so much magic around, detect magic is like, okay, roll me a Constitution save if you want to keep this up to try and decipher things, because there's just so much input here that it's a lot.
Sensory overload.
Exactly. But yeah, this magic sense is, as I put, basically it's a free, quick detect magic. It lasts until your next turn, but it's basically detect magic for free. It doesn't cost you a spell slot. It just costs you. You can use it proficiency bonus +1 time.
If you're gonna do that, just delete detect magic and that off there, and do arcana checks. Make it like an archaeology roll. What
was the other part? Oh my goodness.
Because they'd be like, based on the provenance of this particular artifact, we can tell that it was made using these techniques, so it's probably magical. Then it becomes kind of cool. But like, I don't know, either keep the spell in or just I don't know.
What I don't like is, until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any creatures with the ability to cast spells.
Yeah.
No, that's stupid. That is dumb, and I don't like it.
Oh yeah, so you can
Like,
paint targets on all the
look at
casters.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at this. Like, oh, somebody in here is the evil necromancer. I wonder who it is. I use my second level ability. It's him. I kill him.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that wizards are not proficient with any armor or any weapons or any tools.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I think a wizard would have a tool. It would be reasonable to have a tool proficiency at least. But you still start with a quarterstaff or a dagger, but you're not proficient in them.
I guess it's they're trying to balance out them getting all these cool toys, but I mean, it doesn't feel like it.
Like, I'm sorry, like I don't see anything balancing about having a wizard not proficient with their quarterstaff or their dagger.
No.
But I think, well, I can't remember if it's Black Flag or 1D&D, but I think it's 1D&D. Maybe it's Black Flag. I don't know. One or both made short swords a simple weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be why they didn't just give them simple weapon proficiency like they usually do. But still, it seems silly that a wizard would not be proficient in a staff or a dagger.
That's why I like the concept of weapon scaling based on type. So, like, you could have arcane weapons that actually scale off, say, intelligence and things. So that you can have, hey, they're proficient in arcane tools and equipment because, holy crap, that's what those are made for.
I feel like with this magic sense, as the game master, every stone would be 1 foot would be like 1 foot or more thick. Everything of metal would be more than an inch thick.
Oh, you better freaking believe it.
There would be lead everywhere. There would be 3 feet of dirt everywhere. Because
if you're a nemesis, you're not going to make it easy for you to be detected, so you are going to protect against that kind of thing.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have players railing back. It's like, you're making it so I can't use my ability on purpose. It's like, I'm with Brian here. I hate it.
Yeah, it definitely.
It's just
there's not a resource usage either. It's just you can do this at a minimum. You're doing it 3 times at second level. It's going to be 3 times because your proficiency bonus is 2. You get 3 uses of it, and it's like,
you know what that reminds me of? The original favored enemy from the 5e Ranger. If they chose like humanoid, they could like see all of the humanoids within a mile, regardless of where they were. So like in a city, they could pick out where everybody was within a mile of them, and it's like, this is stupid.
I am Neo.
Right? They can see through the matrix and see the outline. Like, it's bullshit. It's stuff that's designed to make the DM pull out their hair.
Yeah.
Did we get you at the Matrix references, Brian?
I remember when those movies came out.
Me too. We need to have different feats, like almost the one, not quite the one.
It's like, not quite the one. Next level up's almost the one. The final level of it is the one.
Yep. They have to grow into it.
You can't just start with it. You have to build your way.
It's all about self-awareness and actualization.
But to be the one, you have to eliminate the current holder of the one, because there can be only one.
Yep. Neo Highlander mashup.
I'm sorry, I had to. It was right there.
All right, we should probably try to burn through this.
That was my quick run. That was my notes about this too. I mean, there's plenty more in here that I could go on, but we're doing the quick run, and it's just like,
my brain is steadily turning into tapioca. So
it's just like
it's just there was just nothing really exciting here.
Yeah. I was
I get why they're doing that. I do, in that they're trying to make something, and I mean, to be honest, them trying to make their own system, there are going to be times where it's not exciting.
Yeah.
I totally accept that they are trying to lay the foundation, and I do not go on YouTube and watch videos of people, laying concrete. It's not exciting,
Right.
and watching concrete set and as they put the rebar in, I don't watch that.
That's right.
But it needs to be done.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
I just feel like they could have done it with so much of their own content that they've made instead of just using so much of the 5e.
Yeah.
Just copy paste so much of it. Like they could have laid this groundwork but used so much more of their stuff. And I would have been way more interested because I don't know a lot of their stuff. I know they've created a lot, but
yeah. Yeah, no, they do really well with balancing their systems, and like their extra monsters and stuff are really, really like relativistically balanced well and very creative. And that's
they
why I
do a
think this whole
wonderful
thing
job
threw
with
me.
monsters.
Yeah, I think that's why this whole thing threw me, is expecting something that was balanced but more of a novel system that they tailored, if that makes sense. But
like,
I also see why they just kind of left it as a slate that they can build on.
like they have two different deep magic volumes that they could have pulled spells from, and
So
they didn't
deep.
pull any.
Yep.
None. It's all just there, and I'm like, give
Yeah.
me a little more.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, it does feel weird that like with their playtest they weren't like, well, we're going to use our spells. It was no, we're going to use the SRD spells.
It almost seems like they were trying to lean into that comfortable, hey, this is almost exact the same thing that you were playing over there. Come, join us. This is the same but different.
Yeah.
But it just comes off lazy, in my opinion. That's just me.
A little bit like, I don't know, like lazy maybe. I'm not gonna argue and say that's wrong, but uninspired
Yeah, yeah.
and like unoriginal really is what it is for me, because I feel like
Super safe.
so much.
Yeah. Anyways, not to wrap it up on a downer or anything, but I was expecting more, you know?
That was just how it
Well,
was.
Yeah.
I think with both of these playtests, something that I had mentioned to somebody the other day that I'm kind of frustrated about is the way that they're releasing this stuff makes it hard to playtest it.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of us, we're looking in a vacuum, we're discussing them amongst ourselves. I know when I'm running sessions, I'm looking at some of these changed abilities and thinking, well, how would this change things up? Or I'm asking one of my players, like, if I gave you this paladin ability as opposed to the paladin ability now that you have now, how would things change up? But I feel like the way that we're getting things is it's too
Chunked.
bits and pieces
Yeah.
for us to do anything with.
It's kind of like,
And I said, like,
sorry,
if you want to sell me that this is, if you want to sell me on the fact that this is, you really want our feedback, then how about this? You start it out and you say, we're going to give you this adventure, this like short encounter. It's got a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll give you rules for scaling it from tier 1 to tier 4.
That would work.
So, and then, this is our cleric, this is our paladin, this is whatever. Here are some sample characters built out. Here are some pre-gens. Please play through this free adventure we're giving you with these free pre-gens we're giving you, and let us know what you think.
Yes.
And we're not getting that. And I mean, frankly, and I don't know if I'll get flack for saying this, sometimes I look at the playtests that they're putting out and I go, do they actually want our input, or is this just a huge marketing scheme for one D&D or Black Flag? Because like,
yeah,
I like to think that that is not the case, and just the execution is not coming off as well as they were hoping, or they kind of assumed that the community would jump in. That's what happened with 5e. That's the D&D Next playtest was what made it. and that's why they wanted to do it this time. However, I feel like so often, and I know this was very much the case in the very beginning, was we were looking at stuff in a vacuum and going, well, like, I can't fully judge this because I don't know what else is getting changed to base it off of. And I don't have all the pieces to throw a character together. Like, you're giving me, well, you're going to want to adjust this to just make things balanced. And it, you're doing fuzzy math, and
Yeah.
it just ends up not being a good way to measure things.
Yeah.
That was a very good way to lay that out, Brian.
Yep.
I hadn't thought of that, but that would be an excellent way to do it, because, and you're right, we have pieces. It's fuzzy. We don't have the whole thing. I feel like the Black Flag is kind of copying almost the 1D&D model for the playtesting, the way they're doing it. And I realize you can't throw out the full thing all in one because that's so big. But yeah, giving a free encounter, even if it's not a full adventure, just an encounter to play.
I mean, D&D Beyond did it for the longest time. They did Encounter of the Week.
Yep.
Just give us an encounter of the month, or the now every other month. Like, here's your encounter. Here's how you scale it up or down.
Yep.
Please use these pre-generated characters. We've given you 1 for each class, 2 for each class, whatever. And I feel like it would also tell us, if they're giving us pre-gens, like, you would say, oh, well, this is how they intend us to play Paladin. Like, you can tell from the spells they've chosen and, like, the stat distribution, the equipment, that kind of stuff. This is what their intent is. I don't like that intent. So during the feedback, I'm going to say, when you made Javier the Oath of Devotion Paladin, you kind of made him lean towards, not really smiting. Well, I like to smite. And this feels like you have depowered the class, and the defensive abilities weren't hitting for my playstyle. And so you get experience with that input, and you're not getting that now.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yep.
That's a good ending point. That is so well said. Kobold Press, Wizards of the Coast. You're never going to see this, but if anybody ever does, I can show it to them. Give that suggestion.
Yep.
Because that would do so much.
For the next week, I'll just tweet at a bunch of them, and I'll say, they'll eventually see it if I keep tweeting it at them. It's not like they get millions of or thousands of tweets.
Just ask ChatGPT what tweet will get you to get their attention, and have it write it. It worked for Elon Musk.
Oh.
They actually had ChatGPT get his attention.
I don't even want to go into what's going on Twitter right now.
I don't know. It's a mess.
It's
we'll
not
see,
good.
We'll see. April 15th is going to be like a make or break on a lot of things. if that actually happens.
Oh, it kills me.
If that actually happens, like,
it kills me. It's going to be dead. It's going to kill a lot of these social circles by doing that, and it's incredibly dumb. We're getting not to completely jump off the rails of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's really impressive to see somebody that for the longest time was like, this guy's the Tony Stark of the real life. Look at how intelligent he is. And, he tried to manipulate the stock market and pretend to get Twitter, and the Twitter executives were like, F around and find out. And he found out. And now we're watching him just slowly run this company into the dirt.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, you are dumb.
Yeah.
All right. On those wonderful notes, because I will go for a while about what a bad idea.
And I need to rest.
Yeah. So we're just gonna cut it off there. Maybe next time next time when it comes up, we'll know what happened. So maybe we can dive into it.
Oh no!
The post-Twitter world. Random encounters. All right. Thanks for watching live or on VOD, whatever it was.
Yep.
If you've got ideas for random encounters, topics for us, or you want to talk about something on random encounters, let us know.
Yep. Stay
But-
legendary, folks.
Till next time.
Bye.